Alrighty, folks, welcome to our Tuesday live stream. This one should be fire today. I've got John Willis from Special Operations Equipment, Sonny Puzikas. How's it going, Sonny?
I'm doing well. How are you, Nicole?
Great. I'm Nicole Sauce from Living Free in Tennessee. Sonny, for those who are here who maybe don't know much about your background, tell us who is Sonny Puzikas and how did you get to where you are today?
Sonny Puzikas is 54-year-old legal immigrant from former Soviet Union, heterosexual, Christian, married with kids. Uh, you can say pro-Second Amendment, but really we don't need amendment for God-given rights. And I immigrated to United States in early 90s, about 2 years after I left Soviet military. I got married and then moved to United States, lived in Ohio, lived in Florida, in Georgia, finally found my way to Texas, and married for the second time. Most likely that's going to be my last one. I have 3 kids and, live in the middle of the woods in East Texas, teach people to deal with violence, try to grow my own food and stay away from chaos as much as possible.
How's that going for you, the chaos avoidance?
It's actually pretty good. It's actually pretty good. Moving from the city was probably the best thing I've ever done. Like, people say, finding God, getting married, having kids, but in all of that, moving from the city, I just realized now it's just been 5-year anniversary a few days ago that we moved from
Wow.
Dallas, and that's just been at this point, as much as I may enjoy living in the $5 million mansion, if they offered it to me, I would not go back to the city. It's not happening. It's not happening.
So, how was that transition when you first went from city to country living? Was it a little hard, or like how did you ease into that?
The easing process, I don't think it ever stops. It's not that it gets easier because I'm always 16 projects behind. It's just that I became more adaptable to handling it, not as some kind of a tragedy, but this is the way life goes. You know what I mean? It's you always have to work, you always have things to do. It's kind of like, in theological sense, there's this term that people say, you have to go to the desert, and desert does not provide for entertainment. And I found myself in this place where actually, fixing pipes or laying this or working the dirt or trimming the trees or planting tomatoes, that of in itself became entertaining. I don't need to watch freaking stupid TV or get into useless conversations with a bunch of videos to be entertained. You have dirt under your nails and it's entertaining. It's fun. It's good. Besides, it's productive. It's good for you, not just good. So
Yeah, I love watching how the plants and the earth changes through the seasons of the year. Like that connection is a lot stronger in the country. Just by walking outside for 15 minutes every day,
absolutely.
you just start observing things you didn't even know. So, Karita Lee made it today. She was all excited about this interview when we posted out. So
Uh-oh.
I'm glad she was able to make it. Oh yeah, you better follow through there, Sonny.
I see.
I have a feeling you can deliver though.
We shall see.
Yes. Well, okay. So before we started, something I'm interested in to ask you about. You experienced what societal collapse looked like in the former USSR. Can you tell us a little bit? Like, did you see that coming before it happened, or were you in the midst of it before you realized things were going to change dramatically there?
Nicole, when I was growing up, right? So yeah, I went to Soviet school, and to a lot of Americans, it's probably going to sound weird, but our education system was, I'll just say it straight the way Vladimir Putin says, it was head and shoulders above what from current American education system. They actually taught actual history. They actually, kids were required to learn foreign languages. And while there was to a certain degree ideological indoctrination, it was by no means hardcore, injection type of, it was kind of like you have to read that book and answer 2 questions to pass the test. Everybody's like, Okay, well, if I have to do it, I have to do it. But then we all listen to ACDC and BBC Voice of Russia. You know what I mean? And with completely different views. And we had access to Solzhenitsyn books, and we had access to all the other things that told different stories. So I would say from the early teens, most kids that have half a brain, they very casually accepted that we are heading towards major changes. We didn't have such word or understanding as a societal collapse, but we knew that it was, the sense of doom and gloom was unmistakable. And so when it came, I was in Soviet military. I was in service of the regime, so to speak. You know, in its apparatus of the enforcement of the current system, and you know, so when it started happening, even within military, it got to the point to where for 2 months our cooks did not have sugar. For 3 months you know in your division store there was no cigarettes. Um, you know, you go out in the city, you walk into a store where there was a selection of 8, 10, 12 different kinds of breads. There is just this cheapest worst bread available, and few kind of molded pieces of bread laying there, and you're watching, and these little babushkas standing there in line waiting until they're going to deliver something fresher, something better. And I think the difference is, while watching the societal collapse, what I think would be different here, that the level of entitlement within the society in Soviet Union was completely radically different than what we have here in the West, and especially in the US. People there had no expectations of, big government saving them or whatnot. So that aspect of it's on you, no one's coming to save you, culturally was very common and accepted. It was a norm. And if it's something like that were to happen here, which is more than likely, um, I don't know. I don't think it's not about the magnitude of how bad it's going to collapse. It's more of a mindset of the society as a collective. You know what I mean? How they look at it. I think most people here in the West, for them, it would be unfathomable tragedy. While in Soviet Union, it was like, okay, well, this was bad, and this is also bad. It's probably going to last a little bit longer. We lived through World War II. We lived through this. We lived through Stalin. We lived through this. So what? So now we don't have selection of breads, and it's a little bit harder to get cigarettes. Tough shit, you know.
Yeah. So what did the rebuild like? Here's the thing I've been thinking about a lot lately is people see the collapse here in progress. I would say we're in progress.
Oh, we for sure progress.
Yeah. And I'm keen to hear your insights on that one too. So it's something that I think once it's in progress, it's not like, John Willis can say stop and it's just going to stop, right? It's got its own momentum on the, but as it happens, I see opportunities that present themselves. And secondly, the rebuilding is something that humans innately will be passionate about doing. What did that rebuilding look like there?
You know, I think you can look at it and kind of there's different tiers of rebuilding, right? So for the most regular folks, rebuilding is what? And that's something that when you say, rebuilding starts, ability to rebuild has to start way, way prior to the collapse completing. And people think that, here's the collapse going to happen, and then I'm going to start digging the ground, buying the seeds for plants, and going to get me a couple goats. And no, dude, you so far behind the curve, ain't nothing going to be, it's not going to work for you. And what I observed in former Soviet Union was that for country folks, none of that was a big deal. Like, really, it was more like a hiccup. You know what I mean? For big businessmen or people within, let's say, gray, shady areas, organized crime and that stuff, it was a incredible safari of opportunities. It wasn't a tragedy. It was like, holy shit, look at that. They opened hunting season. You know, and when I say hunting season is for opportunities, how to acquire this business, how to, take over this company, how to invest into this, because everybody's, we haven't hit the bottom quite yet, but we're very close to it. And from here, we're going to bounce up. I want to bounce up with as much shit as possible to maximize the return, to maximize the things, right? But then you had city folks, or what I call sleepers, and they were just kind of like casual observers. Eventually they'll restore, and that there's this undefined day. They will restore the supply chains. They will do something this, and this will cut day. I mean, people that don't take any fucking personal accountability for anything they do, for anything that's happening. And it's happening in real time. They see it, they watch it, but they sit on their ass, they complain. They criticize people that are mobsters that are taking new businesses. They criticize farmers because supposedly it's their duty to deliver food to their table, and a higher, more of a choices and more of a selection. Meanwhile, they don't do nothing but that. These were the people that were in demonstrations, waving flags and different kind of, placards. Like, we demand this. Like we see now. With the rainbow flags for this, free Palestine, or hooray Israel, or kill Russians, Slava Ukraine, whatever the case might be. These people don't do nothing, they make noise. In Russia we had a saying, when the real men, when there is a problem, they don't go to the city plaza to demonstrate or whatnot. They talk about shit in the kitchen, and then they pick up the tools and go to work. But what we see now with all these, and now it's virtual, you know what I mean? So it's not necessarily in City Plaza, it's right here on Facebook or on any other social media. You have these gatherings of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in different groups, and they're all talking about what's unfair, what's unjust, what's wrong. Someone has to do something to fix this, to make this right. Meanwhile, I'm planting the tomato, collecting my ammunition, and training people to do things. And, if we do this, we talk to public, and I hope, I truly, honestly hope, and I pray that some of these sleepers, they will see that. And although it's an hours late, but I hope they can still take some action. But it's going to be small numbers. From that contingent of sleepers is going to be small numbers, and that was my observation in the Soviet Union. This was the city folks, the so-called, let's say, Soviet middle class that suffered the most, because they were dependent on that. Someone has to do something, and I'll wait until it's done, and then life goes on.
Yeah, there's a lot of waiting for somebody to do something that I'm just going to say I guess I'm putting myself in there, even though I'm not sure I should, but we, society, just count on, as far as our economy working a certain way, jobs being available, going to the grocery store and finding things on the shelf, like the screaming and gnashing of teeth that happened in 2021, because in 2020 there was some shortages, but it kind of rubber banded back. But 2021, when you just couldn't find things necessarily, was amazing to me, because it's like, well, couldn't you see this coming? Like, all the ports were closed for how long in 2020? Like, of course stuff didn't move around. And, just in time fulfillment has a weak spot, and the weak spot is any disruption at all is a major disruption, and it takes months to recover from it. So seeing that screaming and wailing and gnashing of teeth was interesting to me, because it's such a low barrier to entry to bitch on the internet. It takes like almost no time, really, unless you spend time bitching on the internet, and very little effort, wherein coming out and waving a sign at
least you have to put on the shoes on, right?
Right. So, and then to think you're accomplishing something with that.
No, it's virtue signaling, Nicole. It's you know what? People live for virtue signaling. They live for reaction because they say something. Down with capitalism, kill the this or change this or enforce this, and then they get almost like a virtual erection because a couple of their comrades virtually pat him on the shoulder. Finally, someone has balls to say that, and you go like, really? Balls over the internet typing? It doesn't take balls, it takes fingers that move. That's it.
It's the mob mentality without any
Yes.
fear of having your teeth knocked out.
It's not even mob, it's more like a herd, John. You know what I mean?
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah. Because they can sit and type. It's just like preppers when they have no physical fitness. There's nothing in the ground. They live in an apartment up in the high rise area, and we can get on the internet and spend an hour on Amazon and buy some bullshit, and you get that endorphin release, and you have that sense that you've accomplished something.
Yeah,
meanwhile,
right?
Yeah, it sits in boxes, and we've never tested it. We don't know what it does. We don't even know if this fuel cylinder works with this stove because we've never connected the gas line. And then when the emergency happens, you have all this shit, and none of it interfaces with each other.
Yeah, and yeah, I bought this Faraday bag or whatnot. Have you tested it?
Yeah.
Have you actually done the good testing for your Faraday bag? And people are clueless, man.
People every time you have the Faraday conversation, guys are like, put it in the refrigerator, put it in the microwave. We tried that. I was curious if it worked. It does not work. It does not at all work.
Yeah. And, there's a lot of, look, man, people are going about, transportation. Yeah, I have gas, I have this. Okay, well, do you have ways to make sure that if, God forbid, if something goes that far with the EMP, you have even a chance that your remote start key will survive.
Right.
All the electronics in your car will survive. So what did you have gas? Everything is freaking fried. You know what I mean?
Well, if the power grid is fried, it doesn't matter if your house can be powered.
Well, I mean,
until we rebuild something.
Yeah, there is such thing as generators and things like that. And to a certain degree, we can, we can have some things going, but I just, so last time when I was at the Self-Reliance Festival, we looked at that little device that folks were selling that uses sunlight, and you can cook things. So we got
sun oven, yeah,
sun oven. So we got one of those, and I'm like, we looked at Megan's old motorcycle. I checked it out. It doesn't have any electronic components connected to anything. I was thinking about getting rid of it, and now we're just going to fix it because if something happens, that's going to be my way to get around on the cheap.
Yeah, I'll be in tacticals, Yoda. John laughs because he's seen me in it before. Yep. Yeah, Jose says EMP shield plug right there.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, okay, so how long would you say it was until there was a modicum of stability again in Russia?
As I said, Nicole, the stability, it's I guess depends which part of society you were. In the villages and out in the country, such thing as stability never really went away. It never did. You know what I mean? Yes, the currency completely collapsed. There was huge, people that had savings in the banks because ruble got devalued. They lost all their savings. But country folks don't live that way. So out in the country, man, it was nothing. For the big boys, recovery was, I guess you can say that, when they started making the profit of all their investments that they did during that time, when collapse was happening. And for the city folks, to a certain degree, I'd say normalization started probably within 5 to 8 years. 5 to 8 years. Then again, even them being sleepers, the city folks, the ones that wait for someone to outstretch their hand and do something for them, they never lived entitled lives the way we live here. So, there was no huge spike in like suicides or dependency on new drugs and psychotropics and all that stuff. Here, it's pretty scary thought how, I mean, shit, people lose their crap after 12 hours with no internet access.
Yeah. Every major city, you have teenagers that commit suicide when the power of the internet goes off.
Yep. You have kids that lose their shit because parents remove their access to the gaming console or something like that. We didn't have that. We didn't have that problem. So we're dealing with very different animal. It's very hard to predict how it would go, but I'm not optimistic. I'm not optimistic because, the softer humans, the softer the society, the harder the consequences of collapse of that society. And
okay, so let's dive into the not optimistic, Sonny. What do you think it looks like then? Because I think this was the inspiration for you coming to SRF this time to speak about what you're speaking about.
Yeah. Well, I think what it looks like is, I'm not one of those doomsday guys that it's going to be, the Mad Max days and all that stuff. No, the American spirit of entrepreneurship and all that stuff, as far as people offering services and products, it's not going to take long for that to be back. Again, I'm not going to extreme. Well, let's say, we push too far and we're going to have exchange with Russia of nuclear kind. That's a different story. We don't need to discuss that. That's separate. But within our society, something happening. Yeah, will the grid be destroyed? People think it's going to be some kind of a, massive civil war with our previous civil war like battles and stuff like that. No, even if it's going to get very violent, you're probably looking more along the lines of the 70s Northern Ireland than what we see in the, with the big battlefields. Here and there, a car bomb, targeted assassinations. Yeah, you will have some, a lot of looting, a lot of things like that, but that's mostly the problem for city folks. That's not to say that country folks should be like sleeping, peacefully and not thinking about defending their domain and their property and what's theirs. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But likelihood, with partial, at least partial grid collapse, transportation system collapse, inaccessibility to fuel, inaccessibility to many other means, I don't foresee a huge mob of 500 wannabe gangsters from Dallas showing up at my gate, which is 2 hours and 2.5 hours drive from Dallas. Can there be, people that know that here's food, here's ammunition here? Well, yeah, I'll have few surprises waiting for them if they decide to do so. But I think the biggest thing for folks to consider is, it's to make a list. What are your necessities? Like literally in life, you don't have to go into collapsed society, but what are your necessities now? Do you need something to drink? Yes. Do you need something to eat? Where do you usually get that stuff from? I get it from the store. Will the store be accessible, available to you? Well, the store will be open. Will you be able to have gas to drive to the store to bring shit back? Do you have ability to protect yourself? And do you have alternative means to pay for it if that store is no longer a Walmart, but small mom and pop shop that goes like, I'm not interested in your fiat dollars. What else can you offer?
Did you see barter?
Change?
Did you see barter happen at the store, Sonny, or was it just exchange for?
There was a lot of barter. There was a lot of barter. Yes, there was a lot of barter to the point where people would have, big boxes of Marlboro cigarettes, exchanging it for condensed milk or all kinds of weird stuff.
Did that take place in the store, or is that kind of a back alley type thing?
It was more back alley, but those were more like organized places where people knew that on this day, this is where a lot of people meet. And it would be like gathering a few hundred people for a few hours, exchanges are happening, and boom. Yeah, a lot of barter.
How far would people walk on their own two legs to do something like that, would you say?
Well, I think the more profound question is how far some people are capable to walk. Because looking in today's society, I'm not very confident that most people can even walk a 2-mile distance. Forget about carrying 50 pounds of goods in unsafe conditions, potentially dangerous conditions. I really, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a problem. And establishing some kind of a sense of who are your neighbors, who lives next door, what are their, what I mean? Get to know people, talk to people, see who has what. And some people obviously won't be, especially in the cities, they're not probably interested in conversations like that because it's all the conspiracy theory bullshit, right? But even in the cities, there's a lot of folks that are concerned, worried, create some kind of community.
What items for self-defense did people have when they were traveling back and forth, for instance, to the stores and such, Sonny?
Well, here's the thing, right? In Soviet Union and until fairly recently Russia, private ownership of firearms and especially carrying like a pistol, a rifle, or whatnot was not the thing. Russian society, this is what's so unique about America. We are truly a gun culture. Russia was not. Russia was not a gun culture, but I remember, hell, example, my father, anywhere he walked, he was not trained in knife fighting or anything like that, but he was pretty damn good at using screwdriver, and he carried one in the pocket and it was very sharp and it was, there was a span of few years in like eastern parts of Soviet Union, where I lived. I mean, western parts of Soviet Union. Majority of people that got killed or injured using the edged weapons, it was screwdrivers. So people had that. Very popular thing, and people laugh about it because it's been shown in few movies or whatnot, but it's a sock full of change, quarters, things like that, because we didn't have much of a custom made saps, leather saps or batons or whatnot. My father had police baton, so he had it in his car, and those who had access to more serious weapons, to firearms, they had it. But also there, because of overall growing up in a lot rougher, so to speak, street life, while the word awareness is often misunderstood, people did have different awareness to the street. I mean, they had a sense of the street. Most people now, they fucking have lived in the greenhouses, urban greenhouses. They're not aware what goes on in the wilderness of the street, so to speak.
Right. Nothing will pounce on you.
Yeah, right. Until it does, but then you don't even recognize it what it is.
So when a person would have a confrontation and they would handle that on the street, there was no law enforcement, called. That just kind of happened, and that was the end of it.
It depends. There was a law enforcement. I can tell you with law enforcement. Even prior to the societal collapse, law enforcement in the Soviet Union started becoming so easily bought that if you have money, you could do just about anything, maybe short of public murder. I remember myself driving on the opposite side of the traffic because I missed my exit and I needed to get to this over there restaurant. And the angry cop with lights and sirens pulls me over, and after he got $50 in his pocket, which was more than his monthly salary, I was not a criminal anymore. He actually escorted me to the restaurant against the traffic flow.
Yeah, like Tijuana.
That was that.
Yeah. Right now, the last thing they want you doing right now is handling problems between two men. They need you to call other men with guns to divide you so that we can now take you both into captivity and put you both through the system. How far into a collapse of society is it where people just handle their own shit and law enforcement is not coming? Where is that demarcation?
Well, I think we've seen a couple of those examples, but one of them was Katrina, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it gets to that point, because when, most cops, right? because of salaries they make and all that stuff, you can say that they are not necessarily upper middle class, but they're certainly not lower middle class, right? As such, they probably don't live in the worst neighborhood where shit hits the fan immediately and starts happening. Well, in Katrina, it didn't matter which neighborhood it was. So when it comes to the cop having a choice, having to make a choice, do I go to work to protect my constituents and my, do public service, which is my job, or do I stay home standing behind the front door with my shotgun because my family is next? Guess what? He stays home.
Yeah.
He stays home. And that's one of the things, it's one of the factors in the deeper studies of guerrilla warfare, how to make sure that, so to speak, the authorities will not properly respond.
Yeah, and that's the same for fire and medical as well.
Absolutely.
A lot of people don't take that into consideration.
Absolutely. I'm not even talking about things like restoring your lost electricity because some tree got blown up or the car hit it and the tree fell and it, took out the power lines or whatnot. That's, those folks, the people that work for power companies, they're more likely to live in the lower income areas where shit's going to hit the fan immediately. And I don't think they're going to be traveling to work.
Yep. I'm not even sure it's wrong that they stay home to take care of their family first. I think anybody would do that.
No, it's not wrong.
Like people bemoan that. It's like, well, at least they're taking care of somebody.
Well, I mean, I could ask that person who's frantically trying to call on the dead phone line to get some public service, whether it would be ambulance or freaking fire or police for that matter, right, to come, and you go like, well, why are they not at work? Why are you not at work? Why are you at home? That cop is doing exactly what you're doing, trying to protect and defend what's his, except he has guns and a little bit of training, shitty training nevertheless, but more than you do. Thus, he doesn't have to call you to come help him. You have to call him to come help you.
Yeah, those problems are very amplified in the cities. So when they start in mass trying to exit the city, just like you see during a hurricane, those freeways just get locked down. They're completely gridlocked. And even when you have a mass exit from the city, if the cities are on fire, it's only going to take a couple goofballs to run out of fuel to where that whole interstate is locked down anyways. So
it's not just that. Think about that. If you are the bad guy of those who are looting, that kind of bad guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would say that the locked down or very slow moving interstate looks like a very attractive target to me, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Yep.
I would just go down the fucking 100 cars in a row and collect so much shit that I would be just fine.
Yep. Could you imagine? Imagine that in Texas or Tennessee, for instance. Every motherfucker has a gun. Like, could you imagine walking up to a window? The dude beside you is gonna smoke your ass.
Yeah, but that's here. But if you look at Northeast, Boston, New York, if you look at cities like Los Angeles, dude, it's different stories.
Yeah, absolutely. How long until if that were to happen, how long do you think it would take them to reach your territory?
That's this question right now. What point did country folks start seeing city people knocking on their doors?
I think the first wave would be actually just prior to that happening, because there would be signs. It would not happen out of the blue. And the first wave is probably a good wave because these are people that at least have eyes that I saw it a little bit prior to it materializing. But I think really majority of other folks, they would not go out far. They would think that suburbia is where they are good. So they would be living inner city to more like outlaying suburbia. And a small percentage of them would go further out into the country because they've been there. Maybe they know areas, they have friends, they have family or whatnot. But it would be small in numbers, and you're probably looking on the day 3, 4, 5, after you really hit the bottom, so to speak, you'd start seeing some traffic in the deep country, so to speak. But then you would have to stay vigilant for months to come after that.
At what point are you going to change your security patrols to where you always have multiple people on for 24 hours, right? What's your sleep cycle going to look like? How many bodies do you want for your amount of property?
You change that early. You change that early. You don't wait until something happens. No. For me here, the setup is pretty simple. Number of dudes that I would want to be here, and they would want to be out of where they live and be here.
Yeah.
We have things set up where this is what they're bringing. This is how it's going to work. This is what we're going to have to set up. These are the supplies that we have. These are the supplies that you need to bring in. This is what we're going to do with the lights. This is what we're going to do with the smokes. This is what we're going to do with the concrete blocks. This is what we're going to move where.
Mm-hmm.
Overwatches, communications, using visible light to blind anyone outward. These are the things that people don't consider. I mean, it's not a big investment to buy the spotlights from freaking Walmart at $11 a piece, solar powered spotlights. Set up 30 of them around the perimeter, all facing outwards where it's blinding people. Make sure, walk around your perimeter to make sure that all you get is a fucking wall of light. I mean, that way they cannot see the buildings. That way they cannot see the tents. That way they cannot see. People say, well, they can use the night vision and all that. When it gets to folks using night vision, we have different warfare.
That's a different type of person.
I was going to say, that's a different quality of attack.
And I tell you what, if I'm coming in with the night visions because I want to hit property like that, but I see a setup where it's already people working with the visible light, I see some barriers created, I see reflective stuff being done, I see other things done, I will consider very hard if this is the property I want to hit, because I don't know what else these folks have prepared for me.
Right.
And there are how many other properties that are not that well prepared?
That are not prepared. Absolutely.
Door.
Probably right next door.
Yeah.
Yep. So, there's in protection business, there's this thing is, hardening the target, right? When you're doing personal protection, personal security, from Secret Service to protecting celebrities, right? It's hardening the target, and in that sense, you make the target unattractive to a potential, person who would want to explore the target. And that's
during the collapse of the USSR did you guys see water stop running? Did water ever no pressure, or did water continue to run?
Like city water?
Water did continue to run. What there was a problem was with the hot water.
Got it. But you didn't have typhoid come through, or dysentery or anything like that from
there were boiling advisories and things like that. There was that, but as far as like major spikes in diseases or whatnot, at least in the European part of Soviet Union, it did not happen.
Got it.
So how was hot water produced in Russia? Was that like it is here, building specific, or did they do neighborhoods with boilers?
They did like blocks, like
Okay.
neighborhoods. So it would be like a huge boiler building that would provide hot water for, let's say, surrounding 20 big apartment buildings, right? And they were using, depending where in which city you lived, or which even area of the country or whatnot. Some of them were so old that they used coal to heat the water. Some of them were running on, oil and, other means. And out in the country, it was just like it is here. You know what I mean? Each individual house was doing their own hot water. So if you had prepped to have the means to heat up your water, you're good to go. In the city, you had no choice. People were buying electric water heaters, and basically what it was is you connect this, some of my friends did great business because they would go to Dubai, right? And they would buy from these cheap stores made by, Indians and Pakistanis, these $40 doodads that connects to a little electricity, and supposedly you put this little thing in your water flow and it heats up the water and you can have a bath. I cannot tell you how many people got fucking electrocuted in their baths. So,
Hosted Medical says if you don't prepare for disease and sanitation, you've already lost.
Yeah. So
Yeah, when I first lived here, we did not have running water in the bathrooms because the pipes were full of rocks. And so for about 6 months to take a bath, I had to heat it on the stove and carry it into the bathtub. And I always think about that time because at the time it was annoying. I'm like, well, actually, I know I can do that. So,
yeah,
and that's not such a bad situation, really.
5 years ago when I moved onto this property in end of January, 5 years ago, I had this building that I'm sitting in now, which is my storage building. This is where I have set up my little podcast studio and all that, right? And I had my greenhouse. And then they delivered pre-manufactured 16 by 50 whatever building that I started doing the insulation. I started doing the electric. Didn't know nothing. I used this very platform, YouTube, to learn how to do things. I didn't have enough money to pay professionals to do that, so I'm like, gonna have to do it all myself.
Yep.
And this is January in East Texas. As you know, sometimes it gets pretty cool. Like last night was 38 degrees here. And I would work until 2 a.m. Getting things set up and then walk out, connect my hose. We have a water pump here, and we have a well, and that would be my shower with the cold water from the ground under the hose. Make sure that lights are shining towards the street. That way they cannot see how badly it shrank. And then throw some towels on myself, fucking shivering like a little bitch, and run back into the house, and that was that. At that point, I didn't have a toilet. Take a pee, it's not a big deal. You want to take a dump, either go deep in the woods or you drive to a gas station to take a dump.
Yep.
And strangely, I was actually enjoying it. I'm like, you know what? This is kind of like back to the origins, back to, you know what I mean? It's okay. It's survivable. It's livable. It's not luxury, but you don't die from living this way.
Well, we used to call that camping. Now you
Yeah.
you just own the footprint. Yeah. Where'd the Boy Scouts go? Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you want to develop some skills, start hiking. Go out and backpack for a week.
People don't do that
all the time. I've done it. I'm actually going to do it again this year. You're like, wow, I really don't need much.
What's the word they use? They don't do camping, they do glamping. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a glamper, so yeah.
No, but I took me and kids and Megan. We went to Tetons National Park, and we did some actual camping, and in the tent with grizzlies around and all, and it's fun. It's fun. It's a lot of things for kids to learn. It's good for them. So
yeah, we built 2 composting outhouses here. One is a joke, has 2 toilets, so it's his and hers. And those things work great, man. It's like somebody on here saying
the bucket.
Yeah,
the bucket is our toilet every day.
Yeah, and if you're really concerned about it, just put it in a bag, tie it up, and put it in the trash. Just keep your mouth shut.
Yeah,
allowed versus able.
Yeah, that's actually, I'm converting the glamper to the bucket toilet because I hate the camper septic system.
Yeah.
It smells. I'm like, sawdust in the bucket gets it done, and
it does
compost. So
yep.
Okay, so I have a question from earlier that I put off, Sonny, because it was going to derail the topic, but here we go. Curious if Sonny saw Tucker's interview and what he thought of it. We were talking about that right before we went live.
Yes, I saw the interview as soon as they put it out. I actually did watch all 2 hours and 7 minutes of it. I actually did listen. As a Russian, as someone who actually, not to say that I'm Vladimir Putin fan, but I admire him for what he is, for what his role is. I was slightly disappointed. I thought he went softball on the interview. On the other hand, I really appreciated his first 25-minute history lesson. As uncomfortable as it may seem to many who would like to, hate on Russia and support Ukraine and all that stuff, it's very uncomfortable history lessons, to understand that the way we understand what Ukraine is is a construct. You know, it's tough. It's tough because you go like, what? So we're going to reject that these people are the real country? No, they are real country. They are real country. They have made different choices and all that stuff. But historically, what he said is actually accurate. And you know, I already see articles that this is revisionist history and all that stuff. You know, that was a brilliant chess move by Vladimir Putin when he gave Tucker the big, thick folder of the documents, of the actual letters, historical letters, the originals with the translations, and goes like, this is not something that I invented. This is history on paper, black on fucking white, you know? And so that thing, you know, and many others very softly when he's actually put in the, you know, a lot of people I saw already comments, they go like, he's lying out of his teeth. Russia is only 11th largest economy, not the 5th largest economy. Well, you know, if you look at GDP with PPP, which is purchasing power parity and all that stuff, people may want to educate themselves about the difference between the two and what it means and how it works. Russia is actually the 5th largest economy in the world. After China, number 1, US number 2, India number 3, Japan, and then Russia. It's 5th largest economy if you look at the GDP with purchasing power parity. And it's the one that's moving up, contrary to what is happening with Germany and many other EU economies. So that's another hard pill to swallow to a lot of Westerners, because we're throwing hundreds of billions of dollars, not to help Ukraine, but to destroy Russia. And it's kind of going in the opposite direction. It's kind of going in the opposite direction. And that's another thing, you know, like, we do it, you guys doing, not we, but I'll just be a small part of it, but, you know, Self-Reliance Festival, you know, in Russia, since Putin came to power, and especially since 2014, they introduced the concept of self-reliance on the national level. They're trying to make their country like SOE compound. You know what I mean? I don't need Camden Municipal Services. You know, John doesn't need Camden Municipal Services to be all right on SOE compound. He may lose few services and all that stuff, but he's going to be all right. The rest of Camden, not so much. You know, Russians have been investing tens of billions of dollars into that since 2014 because they saw it coming. You know, on the other hand, West was not paying attention and thinking, hey, we can squash them like a bug. They don't have, you know, the most advanced economy. They're reliant on their national resources and all that stuff. Another national resources, they have people that I already described to you. They're not entitled little bitches. They're all right for 5-6 years to live a little bit rougher life and take showers on the concrete pad from the cold hose. They don't have to do that by any means, but they're all right if they had to. Yeah, most Westerners will start the fucking revolution if they have to do it for one day.
Yeah, they had advertising and television spots and radio that it's your patriotic duty as an American citizen to maintain a 4x8 garden in your front yard and keep 3 chickens. And now, I mean, shit, they'd send police if you had chickens in a lot of these places. I know, right?
Or if you could collect rainwater, for crying out loud, right?
Yeah. That's the craziest one, right? Go anywhere on the internet and say, I'm going to harvest rainwater. And the craziest shit is you'll have 500 people who you've never seen show up before to tell you it's illegal. And then when you look at it, it's actually not. There might be some stipulations a lot of places, but these allowed versus able, man. It's like the people with the dogs. If you don't come take care of this dog, I'm going to take care of your dog. No, you're not. If you're going to take care of it, you would have shot, shut up, and shoveled. That would have been the end of it. Like, handle your shit, remain silent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Silence is a word.
And that's everybody. That's all their problem. They want to call a guy with a gun because they don't want to have to point the gun or don't have it themselves, but that's always at the threat of violence from somebody else. Nobody wants to handle their shit. Just quietly take care of the issue, quietly harvest your rainwater, quietly do whatever it is you're going to do. But better yet, be in a position and in a place where you can just do that. How much property do I need? So much damn property that nobody can see what I'm doing on my property. That's the answer.
I agree, John. I agree. But, you know, This is what it has become, is that, the same people that tell you you should not do this, these are usually the same people, whether you're going to call them leftists or progressives or whatnot. They will also tell you how bad violence is, how terribly violent the rights and conservatives and you survivalists and you preppers are, and you holding, guns and all that stuff. These are the people that will call law. What is law? Law is telling you that you're going to have to do something, and if you don't, there's going to be violence, because court system is violence, police is violence, jail is violence. So they're telling you that don't live violent life, don't have violent means to protect yourself, because I will send violence your way.
Yeah.
I'm too much of a pussy to do that myself, but I will send others.
Well, those are the same people that are, white supremacy, the black face of white supremacy with Larry Elders. There's a lot of white supremacists running around that ain't white. But they've done a good job of getting us to fight amongst ourselves, right? Let's like the bump stock thing, for instance, right? Who knew anybody had a bump stock? Somebody that looks like you, somebody that you hung out with, somebody that you showed your bump stock. Who's going to tell on you? Somebody that you showed the damn thing to, some guy that's got the same stickers on his truck, some guy that's got the same truck you have. Like, just they don't have to come find us. Some dude that we trusted will tell on you. Just keep your damn mouth shut, man. Be careful who you trust. Take a long time to have conversations, and just don't have the conversation every time we don't. I haven't seen it in a while, but we used to, when we'd have parties, big parties, there was always the dude, all he wanted to talk about was machine guns. You're like, listen, Federal Agent Bob, there's no machine guns here. Join this conversation, learn something, teach us something. Let me see your machine gun. As a matter of fact, I don't want to know you have a machine gun. Just shut your mouth. And we're here for this common interest. Go to the gun party, wherever the gun party is. But we see it every night on the live feeds. Do you guys have guns? Do you guys have guns? Can you get me a shotgun? Like, all the time. It's insane, the traffic that is flooding in. And I suspect.
I don't know. You know what I refer to these kind of people, John, and some will be offended because some of them may be watching. And
we worry about offending people so much here, Sonny.
I know I've known John all these years, and I always know that is his biggest nightmare, is offending other people's feelings. Right. And it's infants with the chainsaws. You know what I mean? It's they are infants. They are not grown up in here. They don't have understanding what is manhood, what it is to be a strong individual. Definitely, they don't have understanding what is war. A warrior culture. I mean, but they have tools to cut shit. And I look at that and I'm like, these are, we make fun of people that don't know their gender, that paint their color in rainbow, all shades of rainbow, and we'll go like, well, that's a mental disease. You know what? Infant with a chainsaw is just as much of a mental disease. You should be a grown-up fucking man. Like John says, shut your mouth. If you need something to get done, get something done. You probably have a couple friends that will not ask you where we're going. They're going to ask you whose car we're taking. Go handle your shit.
3 a.m. friends.
Yeah, you don't need to lay out once a week your daily carry layout with serial numbers of your gun visible in the pictures for everyone to see on the fucking Facebook. Come on now. Common sense, infants. Holy shit.
I mean, I noticed when John asked you how many people you would like at your place to help defend it, you did not answer that question. You're like, yep, that's something you should think about.
No, when me and John talk in private, I'll definitely give him my layout, you know what I mean? But as far as this being public information, absolutely not.
Yeah, we've had those conversations. I bring that up so that people it piques that interest, right? There's so many people that are like, well, I live out in the hills and I've got 5 acres. That's awesome. How many people are on your property right now? It's very, very rare that I leave this place more than a couple of hours and there's not still somebody here. Like there's people here all the time.
As it should be.
Yeah, that actually helps, especially if people know your address. And know you love.
And they do, by the virtue of what both me and especially what John does. Absolutely. We are to one degree or another public personas. You know what I mean? It is what it is. So not to take precautions and not to think about it and be like, as the Boy Scouts say, be prepared, right? So.
Yeah, it's funny how being prepared is so vilified, and yet you go to the Boy Scouts, and what are they teaching you to do? Be ready for anything? Okay.
Mhm.
But then if you're ready, that's hoarding food if you have more than 3 days,
Oh
and it
yeah,
will be confiscated.
yeah.
I don't think people
Amanda
know what to do with my food.
Amanda used to go. Amanda used to go to the grocery store twice a week, 3 times a week to buy groceries because we cooked lunch for everybody.
Yeah.
And the ladies checking out are like, "What are you feeding an army?" Yeah, we kind of are. And then we also would hear, "Are you guys doomsday preppers?" Like they would just say that shit. Like people see that. It got to the point where we didn't even shop in town. We would drive to Nashville to go shopping. People know, and if you're complacent with that and you have a pattern, how do they catch serial killers? Because they travel
Patterns.
corridors and they
Patterns.
use those points cards at Vaughn's or Ralph's. I mean, they catch those guys over just complacency and building habits. And man, if you think somebody doesn't know what you're doing, which I mean, just the most everyday mundane things, like people are aware of it, especially now. You can't go anywhere where there's not a camera, and somebody's watching those cameras at some point.
Absolutely. You know, that's one of the main things
I'll
in
be right back.
in the higher end personal protection business is that, you know, is don't present easily recognizable patterns to those who may be potentially observing. You don't take the same routes very often. You change the timing of it. You know what I mean? You vary things where you're not easily pinned down, so to speak.
Yeah, I worked at a cultural training and language training center for years, and one of my coworkers lived in South America. Her husband was an executive in an automotive industry, and he had a security team that did exactly that. That different times of day to get to work, different routes.
Mhm.
Everybody knew what the route was because they were afraid he was going to get kidnapped.
Yeah, when I was working protection business and I protected some, you know, very wealthy individuals, and that was our thing. You know, we called it advance work. You know, so
Hmm.
you would have a couple agents. They would go and they would drive different routes and all that stuff, and find out where are the traffic lights, where's the possibilities of traffic. You know what I mean? Where's the closest hospital if something happened here? Where's the closest this? And you do the advanced work. And 70% of our work was actually advanced work to make the movement and our client's life unpredictable and not easily observable.
So this guy right here, Chuck Peoples from Homestead Medical, he does our medical stuff at Self
I
Reliance.
met I met Chuck at the last SRF.
Yeah, he's
Yes.
awesome. One thing I didn't realize he did until I talked to him about what he had done was he figured out where a helicopter can land to life flight somebody out. Like
Mhm,
had reached
mhm.
out to local hospitals to figure out where they
Absolutely.
would need to go, just so he knew situationally if we have a true emergency, like how do we handle that? And just thinking things through to that extent is it's not something that comes naturally. I don't think. I think you have to
No,
train
but
it.
it's no, but that thing that Chuck mentioned, you know, it's like when we do, let's say, live fire training seminars, right, with the firearms, that's part of it. That's part of your medical safety briefing before the training. Is if this happens, this truck has medical gear. This is the closest hospital. If we need to medevac somebody, this is where the closest place the helicopter can land. These are the, you know, that's just normal stuff, right? For most people, they go like, huh? How do you even think about that?
Well, guys that know, it's a pace plan, man. It's just primary, alternate, contingency. Yep.
It's really no difficult than meal planning, right? If you meal plan for a week, right, you already know that for Wednesday you're gonna cook this. So probably Tuesday out of the freezer, Tuesday night, I'm gonna have to remove those ribs for them to normally thaw out and all, right? You prepare that stuff. What's the difference? The people go like that. That's hard. It's hard to live that way. Well, I'm sure it's easier to lay on your ass on the couch and watch freaking useless crap on TV. I'm sure it's easier, but hey, you make your
It's not
choice.
easier when something goes wrong.
Yeah,
Every time something goes wrong, I'm not prepared for. I'm like, man, I wish I would have thought about that because now I got to
right,
think about it.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Sonny, tell us about your talk at SRF since Letty's brought it up. Can't wait for your talk.
Oh,
You're
so
doing the de-escalation for SRF,
I call it conflict management.
conflict management. Yeah.
Yeah. So this thing, conflict management, just a quick thing, not to waste everybody's time for too long, but just a little bit, right? Most folks that known me for years, I probably don't come across too much, especially maybe a little bit more so recently, but if you knew me 10 years ago, I don't come across as this easily agreeable and peace-loving kumbaya kind of guy that would, do everything possible to avoid the fight. You would probably more expect that I will whip out one of 8 of the blades that I carry on me and do something very, violent and innovative with your flesh. Nevertheless, that's more, I think, image that I project. That's not how I am. And lately, in the past few years, especially, what I realized is that a lot of people, when they say conflict management, de-escalation, it's nothing more than a freaking check mark. It's almost check mark in your own head. Well, I'm gonna tell this guy, he says that, hey, are you the effer who hit my truck in the parking lot? And you're gonna go like, the fuck I am. Did you de-escalate? And you go like, why don't you show the real concern? Why would I? Why would I care about that guy? Because he has a legit concern. Someone hit his truck. He has mistaken identity in you, right? But this can go from you being careless or prideful or whatever the case might be, and you not the one who hit the truck, but the way you responded to him, the fuck I did, okay? Now he pulls out the knife. It so happens you haven't taken any training with me. You don't know what to do with that. The only thing you have is gun. Now you're going to pull your gun, and now you're going to shoot that guy in the face. You're going to go like, I was justified. He pulled out the knife. Then while going to court, if you can afford full weight of it, and I doubt it, right? You're going to find out that this guy has 3 kids, 2 of them autistic. Did you do everything to save his life? Did you work hard enough for it? Because if you think you're going to sit in a restaurant over some wings and beer and high-five people and go like, yeah, I blasted that fucker's face off. No, dude, you're going to start having nightmares. Rightfully so. Because you didn't do everything you could to save someone else's life. Because you were lazy, careless, and full of yourself. So things like that, you have to look at it. This is not just from legal perspective, because how much it's going to cost you and all that stuff. As we say in our industry, there are 3 fights. Fight number 1 is fight for your life and your survival. Fight number 2 is the legal fight. Fight number 3 is fight with your own consciousness.
Yeah.
Was this truly justified, or were you just putting the check mark? Well, at least I didn't punch him right away when he accused me that I hit his truck. Well, how fucking nice of you. But did you really do everything? And then when people, in different situations, right? Cop pulls you over. I was only 6 miles over the speed limit. I have news for you. The way you're going to address that officer, and if you're full of yourself and go like, he had no probable cause and this, and guess what? That attitude will be detected and you will walk away with a heavy ticket. But if you're simple human and have some rationality, and you go like, officer, first of all, thank you for doing what you do. I appreciate that. Okay. Sorry, man. Head is full, was heading to the store, forgot to grab something. My bad. I live nearby here. I should have known better. I was just not paying attention. Your likelihood that you're going to get away with warning increased exponentially. But your pride, you know what I mean? I was talking from below instead of talking from above. Well, you know what? How much your pride is worth? How much is your fucking pride worth? This is the cop, this is the ticket, this is that, right? What about your pride in someone else's life? So I'm going to be talking not only about how to read the body language, how to use the language, how to present things, how to pause, how to, there's verbal judo is not good enough term to describe that. There's a lot of psychology that goes into it. There's a lot of study. Violence has certain pillars. When I was teaching this stuff, and I never expected to teach that stuff in corporate environment, but I was teaching this to executives of Fortune 100 companies in Europe. That had nothing to do with violence. It was their violence was trying to salvage a 80 million contract over the phone conversation. That was their violence, and they were interested to know how to read other people and how to respond to things and how to make it into a little bit less, conflict loaded conversation and more towards a resolution-oriented conversation, right? And it's very interesting because it's for those events. The guy who organized that, he renamed my lecture from conflict management to when he changed it. He said when the shit hits the fan. And I walk in and there's this huge, like presentation thing, with all audio visual and stuff like that. And it has helicopter on the picture and the guy rappelling on the rope and all. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm talking to Nokia executives, not some Delta Force dudes or whatnot. You know what I mean? But that gave me great thought. And since then I used it in every lecture that I do about this. And this is one of the first questions that I'm going to ask audience. And I'm kind of giving away, I guess, what I'm going to say, If you look at the conflict as the situation when the shit hits the fan, ask yourself, are you the shit or you the fan? And which one of the two has the most power to determine how far the contamination will go? Because when the shit is thrown at the fan is not spinning, it just sticks to where it hits. But if that fan, which is you, spinning full speed, guess what? Everyone gets a little bit. And this is the basic philosophy in life that's been around since before Christ. You know what I mean? You don't have control of what other people do or say to you. You have control of how you react to it. Right? So this is going to be the basic premise, and then we'll go a little bit more technical on how to determine his, is his argument rational or irrational, and what supports his argument, how to show compassion, how to show the real care, and why does he come to you not with the knife, gun, but he comes with the word. He expects a resolution, at least provide a chance of it. Because if he didn't expect a resolution, if this is just conflict, we have elbow talk. It didn't start with that. There is time and there is opportunity to talk. Learn that skill. It's just like throwing fists and kicks and elbows and knives and guns. It's a skill. I was fortunate enough to talk to people that are highest level hostage negotiators. And at the same time, I was also very fortunate to work with actors working in the movie industry. And what I learned from some of those guys like Lance Henriksen and you have to learn to present certain things. You have to learn to have a poker face. You have to learn, that body language speaks a lot. The way you change your eyebrow, not necessarily like Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. The Rock has come back to Cleveland, right? But there's a lot of that you can play with and actually make it an actionable skill. And put it in there, and people go like, well, how much is it worth? Well, let's look at it at the warriors, self-proclaimed warriors. What do? They spend 90% of their so-called training time pressing triggers, shooting targets. Now it became popular and trendy to work some medical skills, right? Guess what? If you learn the skills to de-escalate, you may not need to use either. I'd say that's not a bad investment, considering also how much the legal expenses are if you do come to that. So,
yeah, and the life cost and the psychological cost.
There's many people that screw their own lives after this.
If I killed somebody and it was legitimate, I would still have a hard time with it because I killed somebody.
I
know that.
I have some skulls tattooed on my hand. They were all very legitimate. Still remember every single one. So it's. I think there's unnecessary exoticism and almost, it's sexy to take a life. No, it's not. It's a scar. They tell story from the days of the Crusades, right? When the Muslims took the Jerusalem from the Christians, and many Muslim leaders, they wanted to kill everyone within the Jerusalem, and Salahuddin said, don't spill the blood because blood never sleeps. That's something to remember. Blood never sleeps. So, sorry if it went a little heavier than was intended, but
no.
I think we have to be able to face heavy and look at hard.
Yeah, you never know that person that you're having that interaction with. You never know how far they're willing to take it. And if you 0 to 100, they might believe that, like, they come at you with some words and you come out with something else. Like, they might believe that you're actually going to kill them. And like, you never know. Like, I tell the young kids all the time, I go, when you're driving these trucks or whatever, and somebody's going to whip into your parking space and you lay on that horde and you get out and you're like, what, that's my parking space, man. You don't know. We could have just driven past and got a different parking space, and that was the end of it. You do not know. You might 100% be in the right, but if that guy handicaps you, right, you might be in a wheelchair the rest of your life. You have no idea what that other person is willing to bring.
Or it could be that you're in the wheelchair and in jail, and he's dead.
Yeah. I did that to somebody once when I was in my 20s at college, and I like flipped him off because he took my spot. And he walked up to me on crutches and apologized for taking my spot and said he didn't see me. And that was the day I realized, I'm like, it really
doesn't feel like you've been slapped. Doesn't it feel like you've been slapped by the hand of God, right?
Yeah, I was like, exactly. It's like, thank you, I got it. I had to walk half an extra block because of that, So
but the interesting thing about it, man, that I'm still trying to determine if this can be instilled in young people or if this only comes with age and wisdom. I don't know. I don't have an answer to it.
What if you had got this when you were younger?
I don't know if I would have understood it, John.
That's right. I think that I picture you're in the dragon movie right now. Everything's peaceful. And your swords and your weapons are in the barn, and you're out in the field toiling your crops. You still have a sword with you, and
it's right here under SOE.
Right. You want to be left alone right now, but you are 100% capable of bringing violence that they cannot fathom. And I like this, Sonny, and I hope that I live the rest of my life with you, with this Sonny. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think we have a little bit of time to get a lot of stuff done, and I think things might change. And hopefully we're in a position and in a location where it is not, where the world is not on fire again.
But if it is done, then it's our job. It's better us than our kids.
That's right. And hopefully we can instill the things that our children are going to need for those times, for both to live both ways.
Yes. I accepted that. I'm at peace with that, and I became a practicing Christian. I go to church, I pray for this not to happen, but I also train to keep my skills if it does.
So what about the person like me who comes at it from the other way? De-escalation my whole life, but at some point I may have to rise to defend myself.
And that's where, that's the yin and yang of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Jordan Peterson says, I don't think it has to apply only to men when he says that every man has to be a monster who's in control of his monster, so to speak. I think it's for humans in general. My problem over years with specifically, like, since you asked, Nicole, with women's self-defense is that self-defense industry, and you can say I'm part of it, but I'm not. I aborted myself from the industry.
Mm-hmm.
I really aborted myself from the industry. And the thing about it is that within the self-defense industry, when it comes to teaching it or providing information how to do it for ladies, I'm watching it and I go like, so here is the hard reality, right? For the lack of better term, and I'm going to use the examples of different animals. For the most part, female is going to be significantly smaller framed animal than that which comes after her. So for the lack of better term, we're going to say that the female is a 130 pounds chimpanzee who's going to fight a 300-pound gorilla. Now, the way gorilla fights, if you look at the videos on YouTube or, Discovery Channel or one of those nature things, right? It's kind of fast forward, aggressive, and just pound, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you want to pound back when you weigh 125 pounds against someone who weighs 300 pounds, comes with full inertia, and you want to fight the same way back? but you are half the size and half of physical capabilities. What kind of sense it makes? What, you're going to make an aggressive face? Ugh. And you're going to act like freaking you have Tourette's because that's what they told you in Krav Maga class? And that's going to scare me somehow? Kick him in the balls. Please do. They're going to swell up and it's going to make me harder and angrier. That's not the answer. That's not the answer. We're teaching a woman to be a hammer against much bigger hammer. That's not how it's going to work. A woman has certain attributes. That's why men go after her. Now, if we're looking at this as being a purse snatch or whatnot, that's a different story. But I'm talking a little bit heavier stuff, right? It could be domestic violence. It could be revenge. It could be think of sexual nature. It could be abduction. There's so many things that, happens every day throughout the world, including this country, right? In general, when men do those things, they come in for the control. What is the control for a man? I'm going to have you in my space where I need you, okay? And I'm going to look at you all in fear, trembling, crying. This is my victory. This is my, this is my orgasm.
That's your like endorphin rush or whatever.
Yes, I'll have different ones later after I rip your clothes off and beat the shit out of you. But this is that initial, right? I would suggest to you that this is your gold spot, ladies. Allow him to take you there. So in that class, that's what I'm going to teach. Allow yourself to be in that unsafe space where he has you or whatnot, because you have access to everything. And you don't need to reach across blocking hands. You don't need to throw your leg, which will deviate by 6 inches. And instead of hitting him in the balls, you'll hit him in the upper leg. Now he's angry and not hurt and not deterred at all. Because accurate kick to the balls of a moving person is like accurate shot on the moving target. It takes a lot of skill and training. But when my fingers are already on his chest and I have his trachea right here, which is cartilage, which breaks, and it doesn't take power at all to break the trachea. But my fingers are already on there. So when I drive one finger into his eye and the other one breaks his trachea, do you think he's thinking about ripping off your bra? No, he has different problems. He has to take a breath and he can't. So it's completely different mentality and approach. I'm not trying again, to instill this hyper aggression in the woman, because majority of women will not have that. We are biologically we are built differently for a reason. If we don't recognize those differences, what the hell are we doing? Ladies self-defense classes, where again, we're teaching a 125-pound chimpanzee to fight the same way 300-pound gorilla fights, hoping that she's going to do exactly what gorilla does, not having half of gorilla's capabilities, and she's going to win. Then some ladies will say, well, if it comes to defending my kids, it's going to be different. How is it going to be different? You're going to roar louder? Your roars don't do shit. You got to have claws and got to have teeth. Just because mentally you're more built up because you're protecting your kids, your babies, and all that stuff, without capabilities, that doesn't change anything. And if your capability is to stand there, square off with the man and throw kicks at each other, good luck. Good luck. And then we come to things like improvised weapons. What else do you have? What do you have in your purse? What could be used as a weapon? Well, I carry my gun. Besides the gun, what things
like
you
the
can
screwdriver your dad had?
Since you have a hairbrush and the freaking mascara thing, might as well have a small screwdriver as well. Okay, but that's probably not the thing either. It's going to sound very brutal and it's going to sound almost too savage, but most women are not into penetrating others, if you know what I mean. Teaching women to use a knife, it would take a very special lady to truly use a knife. Men are much more likely to go inside another human being than women are. We are built that way. Here, here, here. We are different. But you do have a credit card, right? You know, those newer credit cards, they're not like old ones where you bend them like little paper. They actually feel like freaking metal. Do you know how easy it is to ask your boyfriend, husband, or yourself, if you are that kind of lady that has access to tools and know how to use it, sharpen up one edge of your credit card, almost to the point where it's sharp as a knife? Well, you're talking about penetration again. No, I'm not talking about penetration. I'm talking a little swipe of credit card against the dude's forehead. Do you know how many capillaries are here, how rich in blood it is? Do you know how acidic the blood is? You know what acid does when it gets into someone's eyes? Watch UFC. What happens when the blood gets in people's eyes? When you can't see, you can't fight very well. Am I saying you're looking for victory? No, you're trying to buy yourself a few seconds of time to run, scream for help, and hopefully me or John or someone like us is going to be in the surrounding area, and we will take care of business from there. This is about buying yourself time. Now, if you want to truly become a Ronda Rousey of the streets, a UFC champion level female fighter and all that stuff, well, that's going to be involving 8, 10, 12 years of very extensive and very much in-person training, right? But if we're talking something that we can teach a woman and go like, well, no, unless you can bench press 300 pounds, you're not going to be able to do that to the man. Okay, so we have to look at the advantages, what the lady can use that she has, okay, and be cunning about it and have very different approach. You know, there's a saying about warfare. There's two ways to fight war: asymmetrical or stupid. Asymmetrical or stupid. And what I see in women's self-defense classes, we're teaching women to fight stupid. Symmetrical, the way bigger, stronger, and faster predator fights. That's stupid. That's just stupid. So, sorry, that was another long rant.
Well, I think it's great because I'm not sure everybody knows what to expect about that class. You know, I've had men ask, can I take the class? And you answered that question today saying yes. If men want to sign up, they can. And that would not be a bad class for men to also see.
Actually, very much so, because I'll tell you something, Nicole. While most men are bigger and have more muscle mass, in today's society, most men, as far as their capabilities, they're not that far from a roaring lioness who has no teeth and claws. They may have a gun and they may even know how to press the trigger, but I have taught thousands of people over the decades now, and I can tell you that percentage of people that can really rumble outside of hitting targets with a pistol or rifle is ridiculously small. And I'm talking about men. So yes, men would be actually very benefit, because actually that is part of what I teach men in fighting. I don't teach men either to square off and have a little exchange of freaking elbows and all that stuff. We teach that too, for those who have the attributes and develop physicality or maintain physicality into the later years. But a lot of that stuff is up close and personal. And sometimes that happens just because of the way fights evolve. You will find yourself close and personal because someone tackled you, you got into some kind of clinch, you tripped, or he tripped you, you went to the ground. Guess what? It's face to face, flesh to flesh. You smell each other. So another component for me, for men taking this class, teach your daughters, teach your wives, teach women in your life stuff. Instead of sending them to some stupid class that will teach them to pretend to be a gorilla while they are not.
Yeah, well, and I think it helps explain for somebody who's thinking about the class, and I guarantee you people have not bought tickets who are kind of interested in getting better at this, but they're afraid of the class. Because You know what I'm saying? They're like legitimately afraid of the class because you think self-defense class and you think of all this, pounding people with your fists and how hard
Plus
that's
the Russian guy with the scary face and missing teeth, right?
And I actually had that before I took fighting pistol at tactical response. I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to physically manage it. And then I took the class and I'm like, that was so dumb that I put that off for that long. This class is exactly like that. Like, go take the class. You're gonna go away with a mindset change. I'm 100% sure about that. And
you will not be in shock for the next 3 months of the horror stories that I will tell you. I will tell you what I've seen in life, what I know about life, what I know about violence, and I know quite a bit. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. At the same time, I'm not gonna spice it up to get a wow out of you. This is not the goal. This is not what I'm looking for. This is unadulterated. At the same time, I'm also a husband. I'm also a father. I have 2 girls. One just turned 20. The other one is not even 2. You know what I mean? To me, this is close and personal. In that sense, I'm not here to impress on the ladies that look what I know, or you ladies are, lower caste of human being because you cannot fight the way we men fight. No, actually, what I teach in the ladies self-defense class, I think it's actually one of the stronger areas that men can use in the fight as well, because it's so unpredictable, unreadable, and it does not require big swing of the hand, overcoming some kind of elaborate defenses or whatnot. It's pretty much that thing where someone grabs you in the bear hug and you're trying to break the bear hug. No. Hold me close because I want to be close to your things that work, break, hurt. And once I overload your system, it's not going to be something where you grab the neck and you try to squeeze the crap out of it for 2 minutes. No, I'm going to teach people to shift every half second. I squeezed here, I got enough effect, I bury my finger in your ear. As soon as I feel that wax inside your ear, my next finger goes into your eye. My other hand at that point retakes the neck while my knee is pressing into your whatever. I mean, so it's overloading the system where they no longer extroverts in the fight. They're trying to do something to you. They become introverts, pretty much make the stop. And that's all we're trying to achieve. We're not looking for submission and knockout or whatnot. We're trying to prevent them from continuing to buy time to create distance or access superior weapons or find he who can help you.
Hey, Ray Pierre wants to know if he used the earwax as candle afterwards.
You know what? That's a business idea, and we should discuss that.
Hey, Ray Pierre, you better come to SRF if you want to discuss that with Sonny.
Earwax of my enemies. That would be a great selling point, Candle earwax of my enemies, or wannabe rapists or something. I don't know. I'm pretty sure there's money to be made somewhere.
I mean, that's going to be at your booth right now. There's going to be earwax of my enemies candles.
Yeah, no one ever tried to rape me, so yet.
Yeah. First time for everything, right?
Right.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so we talked about societal collapse. We talked about rebuilding. We talked about mindset change. I want to talk about your homestead now.
Okay.
Why did you decide I'm out? I'm going to go live in the country. Why'd you do that?
Well, there were a number of reasons, right? So first, I was married in my first marriage, and I lived in suburbia in 4,700 square foot custom home with 3-car garage, game room, and movie room, and outdoor kitchen in the whole 9 yards. Going to the store, buying food. Half of it is shitty, not healthy, not natural. I have no idea what's in my food. Didn't pay attention to it. I knew it doesn't taste the same the way it tasted back in Mother Russia. I know those tomatoes, they used to have smell when I was eating them in Mother Russia. Now they had absolutely zero aroma, and the only thing I tasted was water and acid. You know, I knew that my salads are not where they used to be because the only flavor I was getting is from the dressing, not from the ingredients in the salad itself. You know, but I didn't do any research. Didn't I refused to think. I was too intellectually lazy, too ignorant to take a red pill on that. You know, so I got divorced. I lived very inappropriate life after that. Other bad things happened. Uh, I lost most of my income. I lost a lot of clientele. Bad things happened. I lost my drive. I lost my, being sure in myself. And then I met this young lady, my current wife, hopefully last wife, Megan, right? And I know I'm kind of rocking the cradle for some of you out there because Megan is 22 years younger than me. But it is what it is. We met through training. She was one of those young ladies that wanted to learn some self-defense, and then she would come to gun classes and force and force classes. And we started dating, and then I asked her if she wanted to move to Texas, and she said, yay. And so we lived in Dallas in apartments for a couple of years when we dated. We got married, and then during that time, she introduced me to certain movements. She was involved with what they call themselves anarcho-capitalists. So we went to this conference in Mexico, in Acapulco, called Anarchapulco, right? And there's a lot of Bitcoin people and homestead people and prepper people, but majority of them, taxation is theft, leave my drugs alone, and then whatever little specialty they have, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's water purification or whatnot. But the biggest thing there is, I want to limit government's access to my life so that I can use my drugs. That was the overwhelming theme. But we met the guy there, old gentleman named Mr. Griffin. Now, Mr. Griffin is the guy who wrote a certain book called The Creature from Jekyll Island about Federal Reserve. And we listened to his lecture, to his presentation, and I was like, holy shit, man. And then he invited us to his inaugural event called Red Pill Expo, and it was in Bozeman, Montana. So we went to Bozeman, Montana to Red Pill Expo, and that's where I met these people that started teaching me about healthy foods. It's basically SRF without practical stuff that you guys do. It was all lectures. It was not like to show and, you know what I mean, and all that stuff. It was all lectures of people that do that. Actually, how did his name escape? The famous farmer that was there at the last SRF.
Joel Salatin.
Yeah.
Joel Salatin. That's where I met him at the Red Pill Expo. You know what I mean? And that was years and years ago. So, we started learning about food. We started learning about what pharmaceutical industry does. We started learning what they tell us about, air quality, what they're telling us about all other conspiracy theories. And then we met people like Lavoy Finicum's wife, who was there when Lavoy was killed by FBI. We met the Bundys from Nevada. We met, a lot of interesting people. So the red pilling was getting like, and by then I already knew, and James Yeager and James introduced me to John. And then it was interesting to watch because when John, a few years ago, there was this very distinct change where he was heading and all that stuff. And me and Megan, we were like, holy shit, this is so awesome. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you feel like a weirdo talking about that stuff. Be it vaccines, be it, all the other, our little conspiracy theories that by now we have ran out and we need to import more of them from China or something like that. Both of them have become true. And so anyway, when we started learning about all that, we decided that, we want to grow our own food. I want to rely on the supply chain. I don't want to rely on the system. And so financially, I was not there. It took a lot of effort. It took a lot of risky moves, but we were able to get the property. and it's an organic farm. This land hasn't had any pesticides in it for over 20 years prior to us purchasing the land. But it was kind of abandoned. You know what I mean? It used to be huge 90-acre property with probably 35 acres of it being greenhouses. And a lot of them have crumbled 20 years ago. So all the pipes, the PVC, everything was just in the piles everywhere. And then it became jungle on top of it. So I also wanted to have my own place to teach people to do what I do without being on the public range or someone who's an NRA certified instructor range who's going to tell you that if you took step to the left, you're in the kill zone and that's violating safety procedures and everyone is going to die now. So that's how we purchased this land, and then we build our first, not build, but that pre-manufactured home. We started living in it. We didn't even have kitchen for a year in it. We had a sink, but we have no dishwasher connector or nothing else. We washed dishes in our bathtub for over a year. I just built out another house, and this is after 4 years of not having washer and dryer. I have washer and dryer on property now. We used to use public, you know what I mean? We go to one of those lavanderias, where a bunch of Mexican dudes washing their work clothes. That's where I did laundry for 4 years, So these are, luxuries that I lived with that were always there and take it for granted. But then when you kind of have it and able to get it back, it's completely different appreciation for it. So yeah, that's how we decided to get the property. And then when we got the property, because of people who were hanging out with and listening to and reading their books and their materials, that's how we got into learning about growing food, taking care of it, growing it organically, not using the bad stuff. And then preparing your own food, and then water purifications and all the other, how that goes, Nicole. It's once you're down that rabbit hole, you're not looking to get back to the surface. Yep. You go deeper and deeper and deeper, and you like it more and more because it's the original way. It's the way it's meant to be and used to be.
It is so important for people to hear how you got your homestead, because you had to work for it. You had to sacrifice for it, and you had to stay oriented on that goal to get it done.
Nicole, the last SRF when I was there, I stole, and I don't remember if it was you or Amanda, but when 4 of you ladies were on the stage, one of you said something as profound, and I'll give you a credit because I'm talking to you. Maybe it was you, and I think it was you. As profound as anything that someone like caliber of Jordan B. Peterson said. And here's what you said. Because you were talking specifically about this topic when people go, where do I start? And they have this, unsureness, And the usual excuse is what people say, well, if I could, I would. And you said, change the whole paradigm. If you would, you could.
Yep.
And that hit me, and I stole it, and I'm using it in every class now.
I'm sure that wasn't me, but thanks.
I think it was you.
Really?
I think it was. Yes.
Yeah. I usually go to how can I?
Either way.
Yeah.
But and so coming back from getting the homestead, John is my witness. I was emailing John, thinking maybe John would invest into this property because I couldn't afford to get the property. And you know what? Now I'm thankful that John did it, because that would have been much easier. And I don't think I would have appreciated and made out of it what it became.
The skills you learn when you're roughing it on your homestead are instrumental later when you're dealing with things on your homestead.
Not just that, what else it became? Things that I used to think, oh man, I'd rather pay somebody to do this shit. You know what I mean? Like digging in and connecting your new building to existing septic system, right? When you open that septic tank, it's not like the most pleasant thing you can work with. You know what I learned, Nicole? I learned to love that work. I don't hate that work anymore. For one, I'm learning. 2 is I'm doing something that's good for me. It's for my family. It's gonna remain with my kids. And if I need to do it again, I can do it. And guess what? I didn't spend money on it.
Plus, you know how to do it when the time comes that you have no choice but to do it.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, hell yeah. So it has so many little side effects to it. It's not just having property. It's not just growing your own freaking tomatoes and peppers and watermelons. I mean, it changes your outlook on life. It changes your think of, like, oh, this is hard. Thank God this is hard. Thank God this is hard.
So what's your most spectacular garden failure and what did you learn from it?
When you plant watermelons, right? And then you harvest them somewhere around July or whatnot, at least here in Texas. And we had some great watermelons here, some amazing water. Like if you ever had like black diamond watermelons, oh my goodness. Another thing I tell you, that's funny thing that when people say we don't learn from different, there are things that you can go cross culture and learn things. Watermelon with salt is the way. Watermelon with salt is the way. You can thank me later after you try it. But anyway, so with watermelons, if you don't till that ground really, really good after you harvest watermelons and you decided to plant something else there next season, you'll have watermelons. A lot of them. You don't water, you don't do nothing, and all of a sudden there's freaking 8-pound watermelons everywhere come next July. So if you grow some watermelons and you don't want to do it next season and all that, make sure that you till that stuff deep and clean it out because you will have watermelons.
Pumpkins too.
Yeah. Those seeds will stay and they sprout out like there's no tomorrow, and they take up a lot of space. And if you grow something more delicate there, those things are heavy, those things are big, and that will affect your stuff.
I always let my volunteer squash or watermelons or cucumbers go because those end up being the best fruit and the most vigorous plants. I'm like, I guess we're not doing green beans here anymore because I got a squash plant or whatever.
And if you grow tomatoes, don't be afraid to overdo with what kind of things you're gonna have to support the weight of that plant. Some people think like, no, I don't need anything too sturdy. Fuck, you don't. Yes, you do. Some of that should become so big, so heavy that it will tilt stuff
little
over.
Tomato cages at the hardware store.
Oh, hell no. Hell no. They have no chance.
Some peppers.
For those who do grow tomatoes, we learned from some farmers is that especially if you grow organically and you don't use any pesticides, growing it together in the same bed with basil and, believe it or not, carrots actually helps. So we kind of experimented with it, and with basil it was interesting because actually it was even almost a little bit of I would say a dash of flavor added to tomatoes themselves once we harvested them, growing in the same bed with basil. We grew like 3 different kinds of basil in there, and it was awesome. Our tomatoes, we were growing Cherokee purple tomatoes. We were selling them at $7 per pound, and we were still selling at the farmer's market. I would bring in 25 pounds, would sell out in one day, and then we had like 5-star restaurant chefs coming in, buying it out, all my tomatoes. And they would invite me to taste it, and they prepare what's like true homemade mozzarella and and other things. And you go like little plate for $26, and I'm like, shit, I should have sold my tomatoes for more than that, But people go, I can go to Walmart and buy tomatoes for 99 cents a pound. Yeah, go ahead.
Do that. That's what I always said at the farmers market. They'd be like, "This is more than Walmart." I'm like, "Go buy your stuff at Walmart."
Yep, you're right.
Yep.
But you know what? This is also the mindset. You can say, hey, I can buy this bag or this backpack or this vest for $49.99. Why would I pay $250 at SOE?
Yep.
Because because my freaking backpack sitting right here that has freaking flashbangs and smoke grenades and medical and 6 extra magazines for my pistol and 2 more knives and some silver and some other things and all that. I dragged that thing for the last 3 years everywhere. Not a single freaking thing came out of it. So why would I want to spend $49 3 times in 1 year when I can have this? In Russia, we had a saying, I'm too poor to afford shit.
Yep.
So that's that.
Well, my most spectacular failure was tomatoes, Sonny.
Oh yeah, what happened?
I grew like 20 tomato plants my first year here, and I had an awesome crop, and I learned how to can them and all of this. This was 17 years ago. So the next year I grew 140 tomatoes. Because if I can do well with, you know what went wrong there. I could not keep up on weeds. I could not keep up. Like I got blight for the first time here, and it took all, I got less production out of 140 tomatoes than I'd gotten out of those first tomatoes. And it wasn't until last year. So we're talking about 15 years later that I have managed to be victorious over the blight here.
I see.
So I've always had better tomato crops since then, but I learned that more is not necessarily better in the garden. You got to put what you can keep up with.
So
sorry, John.
What's the answer? What did you solve? How'd you get rid of the blight?
Aspirin.
Got it.
Okay. So I put, I don't do what Jack does. I put 2 aspirin in when I transplant them, and I have aspirin in the water when I start the seedlings. And that's actually been about 2 years. The first year I tried it halfway through the season, and it helped. Last year, no blight problems at all. I was getting tomatoes until the first frost, and usually they would die in early August here.
Yeah, we found also, because we grow everything organically, I forgot what that worm is called, but it basically beheads the plant.
Oh yeah, that one, the hornworm, tomato
yeah
horn.
Those are nasty. But what we learned from one farmer, he goes like, what do you do with your eggshells? He goes like, don't throw them away. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, crush your eggshells and put them at the base of each plant, because their bellies of those worms are so soft they eviscerate themselves when they crawl through the eggshells. So we started collecting freaking boxes and boxes of eggshells, just crushed the eggshells, and then my raised beds looked like everything is sparkled with little eggshell, broken eggshells around each tomato plant and all that. So yeah, it's a little bit of work, but when you open up that tomato and you go like that or Walmart, okay, never mind.
Sonny, are you growing in row houses, your tomatoes, or are they out in open air?
In open air.
Okay.
In open air. Yeah, obviously the starter plants, we start everything in our greenhouse. But then we transplant everything into our raised beds, and they are in the open air.
We toured a farm a couple of years ago, about 20 minutes from here, and they were in row houses like the row houses we have, and they were growing their tomatoes in 5-gallon buckets, aquaponics, and they just had a circulation system, so they were using nutrients, but they were taking, their stalks were probably as big around as a baseball bat, and they were growing complete vertical, and they had no limbs, so the tomatoes were growing on that stalk all the way up, and then they had a little bit of vegetation at the top. But man, they were pulling softball-sized tomatoes out of these things. Amanda and I bought, they were so cool. We bought a bunch of stuff. I just wanted to give them money for letting us tour the place. And it was very interesting. I'd never seen anything like that. There was almost no leaves on those plants. And
man, that's weird.
Yeah, we can actually go over there. We'll go when you're here next time. We'll go check it out. It's pretty wild to see it.
So it's somewhere locally there, close by?
Yeah, they have a event venue. It's called Black Wolf Acres. They do zombie paintball during Halloween. Okay. They got these big slides. Really cool place. Pumpkin patches and stuff.
Nice.
But it's neat property.
That's cool. Yeah, and I had a failure. We wanted to plant some really interesting peppers, and we did not do good with peppers. We found these peppers from one farmer. They called Mad Hatter peppers, and those were absolutely best tasting peppers I ever had. They're not hot. They're not spicy. They're more like much more flavorful Italian peppers, something between I would say poblano and Italian. I don't know. It was just such a complex flavor, but we did not succeed with those. But I'm gonna try again.
Spearco just did a bunch of peppers on his show he was talking about yesterday. Baker Creek stuff. Somebody was asking, is Russia's grow season much like Alaska, Sonny? Short?
Dudes, take a look at the map and at the sheer size of Russia.
Okay.
So you have,
right.
You go to the northern parts of Russia and tundra, there is no freaking growing season there, pretty much. Then you go to the southern borders, next to Georgia, next to Armenia, and next to Kazakhstan border. You know what I mean? It's you have pretty much southern Texas weather. So and everything in between, and you have mountain regions. You have Altai mountain region, which is in its beauty easily comparable to Swiss Alps. No one knows about it, thank God, and I think they're going to keep it that way. And so yeah, it varies because it's such a huge country. There's so many variables.
30-day review, man. He was saying he needs to put his garden beds to sleep and figure out how to get rid of the weeds. Check out solarizing. Silage tarps, but solarizing with clear. You can do it with black also, but clear will really cook that out. When you put that plastic over there, it's going to cause all of the seeds to sprout, and it's going to expire all the seeds that are in there. And then if it's black, they can't get sunlight. If it's clear, it'll literally cook all that stuff to death in the soil. It'll get rid of all of that.
Yeah, so the solarization on the clear cooks them, and I think the black suffocates them basically.
They can't get any light, so they sprout out of the warmth and the moisture.
Which one, if you've tried it, which one you found working better, black or clear?
Well, it depends what you want to do, right? I still want to have stuff in there, so okay. I don't know. I've done black is what we've done.
So for me, black has worked better only because of the amount of effort I'm willing to put in. If you're going to solarize, the best way to get it done is to dig a trench around it, pull the plastic really tight, and then bury it. Which, if you get the book "Winning the War on Weeds" by John Moody, it explains both processes in detail. It's a really good book for that.
Okay.
Solarization, I hear, works well. I haven't had great luck because I never dug the trench. With the smothering method, I basically can just weight it down and it works really well. And I use billboard tarps, John. Those work great because
billboard vinyl is great for that.
And there's a couple of websites that they sell like old billboard vinyls.
Yeah,
and you can buy those stocks for pennies on the dollar.
Yep, billboardvinyl.com. We had them here. We had a chicken nugget one. And a Coca. They were all McDonald's stuff.
But I got Walmart here.
I'm just gonna try to find some kind of strip club vinyls. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think that would be just funny,
Man, if you haven't seen it done, you could take just the most unkept field or yard and put those tarps down. And if you can, the longer you go, the better, the more it's going to work. But 90 days. But you really want about 6 months on those suckers. And while you're doing it, or you mow the grass down first.
Yeah.
But take and put like sweet feed, molasses, put something out there. And when you peel that stuff back after 6 months, it's going to be like potting soil. It's going to be full of worms.
Nice.
Yeah. And then once you pull them off, you got to overseed with something, or you are going to get the kinds of weeds you don't want back, because you need to fill that blank palette with something, or else, birds, wind, everything.
Yeah, so pretty much at that point, once you peel that off, you might as well start cultivating that land and start growing stuff in it. You don't want to let it sit like that.
Even if it's just a cover crop, man.
Yeah.
Just legumes, put something in there.
Yeah.
Field peas or something.
All right. Well, guys, we're coming on 2 hours. Let's go once around the horn and we'll wrap up. Let's start with you, Sonny.
What's the once around the horn thing?
So once around the horn means tell us who you are, how we can interact with you, and
the business part, right?
Yeah, the business
part. So I have a website, sonnypuzikas.com. Fairly easy to find. I do have presence on some social media, not as much as I should, and I know, John, working on it slowly. So I'm on Facebook, I'm on YouTube, Forward Training Concepts on YouTube channel. I do run my podcast. Some of that stuff is public. The good stuff is behind the paywall. It's a cha-ching.
Yep, worth it.
I do put in some controversial stuff. It is training related. It's not related to philosophies, to farming, to homesteading. It is violence related, about training. The podcast is called Gospel of Violence Podcast. It's membership based, so you can explore that at gospelofviolencepodcast.com. And other than that, I don't travel as much as I used to. I do most of my training here at my place. I will be obviously at SRF there in Tennessee, both in April and, God willing, in October again. But you can find all that information as far as training classes. I do not a lot, but I do offer private training. I have some clients that don't want to be in public classes or be seen in Instagram pictures. So if you're one of those people, give me a jingle, let me know, and we can talk. Other than that, I guess that's it.
We'll see you in April. John, what do you got for us?
SOE Tactical Gear is what we do that allows us to do most of the other stuff. I do a live every night at 9 o'clock on YouTube. Join in. We can have a conversation about anything that you want to talk about. We do a different t-shirt every week. That's this one this week. We do 120 pieces. They sell out. And I'm easy to find. We've got 5,000 videos on YouTube. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. I'm everywhere, literally. Just SOE Tactical Gear.
And I'm Nicole Sauce from Living Free in Tennessee. You can find all of my projects at NicoleSauce.com. But I'm going to say this now. Sonny Puzikas is doing Fight Like a Girl class on April 5th. And you can get tickets at selfreliancefestival.com. And once we fill it up, there will not be any more tickets. So I would recommend, if you want to tap into his expertise this April, go to selfreliancefestival.com, click on tickets, and it's in the workshops area, Fight Like a Girl. And you can also grab your tickets to Self-Reliance Festival. Both of those things are on sale right now for the early bird through March 1st. So definitely get that done. I can't wait to see Sonny. I can't wait to see you at Self-Reliance Festival. And hopefully we'll get a little chance to talk off in the corner somewhere while you're there.
I think we'll find an opportunity. Absolutely.
Excellent. Okay. Well, we'll see everybody next time.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Hold on, Sonny. Hold on just a second.
All right. We'll do.